Hello, and welcome back to another fun-filled episode of the Hammercast. I'm your host, Alex, the Hebrew Hammer Salkin. And on this episode, I am joined by Francois Peloquin. I hope I pronounced that well. He is a French-Canadian giant of a man who is also quite devoted to his training. Now, that is not his primary field of expertise. He is an engineer by trade, he has a wife and a couple of kids. But he has also a very impressive level of strength. And he talks to us in this episode about his approach to it, how he has made strength training a non-negotiable part of his life and seen some really, really impressive success as a result of it. And one of the main things we're going to be talking about in this episode is going to be how he literally tripled the number of pull-ups that he could do and improved their quality as well by following a program. Really, it's more of a challenge of mine because it's something that you can tack on to any other program that you're doing called Power Up Your Pull-Up. And he had a very, very interesting approach to it that I actually learned quite a bit from. And he goes into some great detail on some of the things that he learned, how he applied it to his life, and sort of his philosophy about training as well. And I always think it's really good to get the philosophy of training philosophy of people who don't do it for a living, because they're the people who have to put this stuff into practice more than I would say personal trainers, because they do that for a living. They can carve out the time, make the time, what have you. So it was a very good episode, very interesting. And before we begin, one of the things that I will mention is that if you have not already, highly recommend that you get my 9-minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge. I've heard a number of people tell me that it has helped them improve a wide range of their kettlebell and bodyweight skills. And the really cool thing is that all the movements in this ebook they're avant-garde, meaning they're not like traditional kettlebell and bodyweight exercises, meaning it's not going to be just more swings and get-ups or push-ups and pull-ups. Even though I love all those different exercises, this is going to have a direct impact on how well you perform these other things. And the nice thing is it's not going to drain you. It's not going to take a whole lot of time. I mean, it's like 9 minutes total. And you can put it at the beginning or end of any program that you're currently doing now. So any workout that you do in your current program, you can very easily fit this in without interfering with the results of your program. Other than that, you will probably see better results, right? So you can go to my website, alexsalkin.com. That's ALEKSSALKIN.com. Or check out the link in the show notes / description, depending on where you are enjoying this episode. And grab yourself a copy. I think you will enjoy it. So without further ado, let us go to Francois Peloquin. All right, Francois, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
By the way, did I pronounce it correctly, Francois?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we don't pronounce the S at the end.
Yeah. Okay. I was, you and I were talking just before before we hit record, and I wowed you with a very small amount of French from my high school days in French. And one of the few things I remember was, for instance, like, some of the names like Francois and stuff like that. You wouldn't pronounce it like maybe like how the average American might, where like every single letter has to be pronounced or what have you.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm sure you deal with that quite often.
Yes. So usually I ask people, English people, to pronounce my name Frank. So it's my nickname.
Sure. No, that's a good nickname, and it's certainly a lot easier for the average American to remember. Mm-hmm. So, folks, if you are listening and you want to refer to Francois in some sort of a future correspondence, if you say Frank, I will remember. So we have his official permission to call him Frank. So, well, I'm very excited to have you on the program because, a couple months ago, you had a really awesome post in the Hebrew Hammers Hidden Hideaway, which is my semi-private Facebook group. And it was chronicling a journey that I did not even realize that you were going through. And you were going through Power Up Your Pull-Up, which was a challenge that I sold last year. And then I also revived it this year. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. But one of the reasons I was so impressed is because, like, you're a big dude. And the stereotype most people have is that big dudes don't do all that well with calisthenics, and especially not stuff like pull-ups. And but your process to getting to the amount of pull-ups that you did, which again we'll cover in a little bit, was pretty cool. But the one thing I think is most interesting is people's origin stories, because everybody ends up where they are now from some, event or whatever that happened to them in the past. So I'm curious, how long have you been working out?
22 years.
20,
So yeah, I started August 8th, 1999. So I remember the date.
coming up on the anniversary.
Yeah, in 3 days it will be 22 years of physically training. Kind of fall in love with the process. I was not very good in team sports, so weight training was a way to do something against myself, so competing against myself. So it clicked with me. By the time it was my brother-in-law who invited me to follow up. So I was 16 years old at the time. He was in his early 20s, so he was a big dude. He played football in high school and college. So he and his friend was training, and he said, "Jump in with us, and we'll show you your way around." So it was the typical beach muscle, bench press, and bicep curls around the weight room. But for a month, I trained with those guys, and then school started back in September. We split apart, but I continue to work out ever since. And so yes, that's the beginning.
That's very cool. Now, I'm just out of curiosity, when you say football, do you mean like American football?
American football, yes. We do have Canadian football, but it's about the same rules as American football.
Very cool. Very cool. I did not know that. Now, working out from 1999 until now, a lot of things have changed in the world of training, because I remember, back in those days, I was a bit younger. I mean, I think 99, I was like 13. So I hadn't really completely discovered. I know I kind of knew a little bit about exercise, but not strength training. But the stuff that the 2000s brought was like totally different from what we were used to, from what you could find in the 90s. And I think in particular, kettlebells, and then the resurgence of calisthenics training. And I'm curious, with somebody who has the background that you have, and had a kind of a traditional beginning with weight training, when did you first get interested in kettlebells and calisthenics?
It was 2013. So my wife was pregnant with the second kid. So we already had a daughter. I used to go to the gym after work, and I got home, and the baby girl was already clean up and ready to go to sleep. So and I was leaving home early in the morning to go to work. So I didn't see my older daughter very often. By the time the wife get pregnant, and I said to myself, I need to find a way to do what I like, which is weight training, but to be home more often and see my kids grow. So I start taking the money that I will usually use to do my annual subscription at the gym, and invest this money at my own. And one way I find out to spend this money very efficiently was to do bodyweight training, and then I found out about kettlebells. So it was very few training equipment for a lot of exercise possibilities. So I did a small space in my basement. I bought a couple of things. We did the space wasn't finished, so we painted the wall. We did a floor, lighting, everything. So and then I started. What we didn't have in 1999 was internet. So it was there, but there wasn't a lot of things. But in 2013, we have internet was growing, and then you have a lot of fitness cue to be have. And I found out about convict conditioning. So it's a book about calisthenics in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when I said to myself, I can be full convict conditioning at home. I don't need to be to the gym to do that. And then convict conditioning was on a Dragon Door site. There was blog, and the famous Russian kettlebell certification. So start reading about that. I found out about Pavel both entered the kettlebell book, and yeah, the rest is history.
That's very cool. You know, I think your process to discovering kettlebells and calisthenics is probably one that others have come across as well. Meaning, you know, they all the time that they could spend in the gym when they were like young and single, and you know, maybe they didn't have all of these different responsibilities. It's very easy to do that, but by the time you get married, you start having a family, you start to realize that the time that it takes to get to the gym, I mean, unless you live right next door to one, it's like, you know, there might be 20, 30 minutes to drive there in some cases. Then you got to work out for an hour, and then there's the drive back. And so it's like, do you really have 2 hours, you know, 3 to 5 days a week to invest in something like that? And the answer for most people is absolutely not. And you know, my own introduction to kettlebell training was, I mean, the first lesson that I ever took on it. I'm coming up on an anniversary too. So we talked about yours was, what was it, August 8th of 1999. For me, it was like August 17th of 2008 is when I had discovered a kettlebell earlier in that year, but I had my first lesson with my own coach then. And it really was something where you realize just how much potential there is when you start to apply the principles and the practices appropriately. And you know, when the results come in, then the rewards are, you know, are motivation in and of itself. But then that makes me want to ask. Now, it's one thing because I'm a professional. This is what I do for a living. But as somebody who does this as a passion, do you have any motivations for working out? And if so, what would they be?
I don't rely on motivation. I do have a lot of personal discipline. I study a lot. I work a lot, and I work out a lot too. It's just discipline. But most morning I hate it. I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to go to the basement. I don't want to do the work. But it's my routine. It's what I do. It's what defines me. People know me as the buff guy. People know me as the dude who train. It's who I am. It's what defines me. So I just do it, and I'm so happy after each and every training session. That's what I get from it. So I don't have the motivation to do it, but I do reap what I sow.
That's fantastic. That is, you know, I have to say too that if there were any piece of advice that I could give to somebody, it would be exactly what you said. The motivation is completely secondary. You'll get motivated once you're disciplined, because you're going to feel like if you skip your workout, it's just going to bother you, right? Like you're going to feel like you cheated yourself. It's just not going to feel right.
I prefer to do 6 workouts a week of 30 minutes instead of 3 workouts of an hour, because same day, every day, I wake up at same hour, do the work, and then on to my day. And it becomes automatic. It's an automation. It's just a process that I repeat. And you don't have to rely on motivation. People wait for the motivation to start, but motivation will come after the action. So just do it, make it a routine, and then you will have the motivation, because you will have success, because you will see something change, and
Absolutely.
then you will have the motivation.
Absolutely. You know, on that note too, I would say sometimes people, when they're training, you know, everyone has different body types, and so people have different things that they're good at or not good at. And I think a good general rule is that if you can get good at the stuff that maybe you're not very good at, that's probably going to have the biggest impact on you overall. And you know, as I mentioned kind of earlier in the episode, you're a big dude. I think you said like 240 pounds, right?
240 to 45.
Right, and it's muscle too. I mean, like I've seen some pictures of you working out, and it's, you know, I mean, everyone's got a little bit of body fat, but you're like, you've earned the reputation of being like a big muscular dude. And the stereotype most people have of big guys is like, oh yeah, they can lift big weights, but usually they can't do body weight exercises very well. And so for you, for instance, did you struggle with pull-ups as an adult? And if so, was it, you know, just because of your size, or was it just something you didn't put a lot of focus on?
I remember doing pull-ups for about as much as I started weight training. So it was part of the plan to do some, but they were always sloppy. Not chest to the bar, not having to hang out the arm totally unflexed. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know the
like
right word,
no,
but
yeah, not straightening out the elbow.
yeah, not straighten up completely. Partial reps, counting for full reps, things like that. So yeah, my true real full reps was always between 3 and 4. Even though in the times when I started training, I was when I started out, I was a 200-pound young dude, and then in the first month of training, I lose a lot of weight. Like I went down to 180, and by the years goes by, I build muscle, and then a bit of fat too. And from where I am, and I always stayed, no matter the weight, at 3 or 4 pull-ups.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the struggle. It was to do more reps. So I was able to do it, but not adding. Even though I was doing it and doing it and doing it, the number won't come up. And the form was bad.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I think a lot of people deal with that, is not only is the form, could the form maybe use a little bit of improvement, but they don't really necessarily improve in the total number of reps they can do either. And it's interesting to hear you mention that, you would do partial reps and stuff like that, and you would count them as full reps. I think that's probably the most common way that people do pull-ups. Like, I remember, for instance, many years ago, I was in Haifa in northern Israel, and I was walking down the promenade by the beach, and there were some American kids who were there. I mean, they were probably teenagers. They weren't like little kids. And some gal asked a guy, "Hey, how many pull-ups can you do?" So I was like, "Oh, this should be good." So I watched, and he was doing, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see what I'm doing. It was like partial reps, like not even all the way to the bottom and never all the way to the top. It was just kind of only these partial reps. Exactly. And he did that for way too long, and then he jumped down. He goes 20, and I didn't have the heart to tell him he didn't do a single rep, so I just kept walking. But it stuck with me because that is extremely common. Now, you were able to finally break that 3 to 4 rep, let's say 3 to 4 rep max after a while, after you started doing Power Up Your Pull-Up. So what was your experience like with the challenge?
I read the program all throughout, about 2 or 3 times. And then I said, okay, at 3 or 4 pull-ups, I should be starting at level 3. But then let's be honest with myself. It's not full reps. What if I start at level 0 and I act like a newbie, like my first pull-up? So I went on and just do the work. Every other day, I will practice pull-ups. And there's just enough variation in every day that it's the same but different, that I didn't get bored. So I went on 4 weeks of level 0, 4 weeks level 1, 4 weeks level 2, and then I tested myself, and bam, 11 pull-ups. So
and I think you said
what happened, I don't know what happened. It just worked.
Well, that's great to hear that you basically tripled your pull-up numbers. And I think you said you had like 11 that went chest to bar and 1 that didn't quite go chest to bar, correct?
It was a chin to bar, maybe. Very shaky.
Yeah.
It was still better than my 4 that I tested before the program.
No, that's very impressive. To go from 4 to 11, almost 12, is most people just don't even think it's possible. And what I thought was really great about what you said was that you started at, because for those of you who have gone through the challenge, you'll know there are 3 different levels. One of them is if you can't do a single pull-up yet, or maybe you can do 1, and then if you can do like 2 or 3, and then if you can do like 4 plus, and right. And so you started very humbly at the very beginning, as though you could not do any, and were able to fill in all these gaps in your strength. And then, lo and behold, a few months later, you had a pretty impressive result. Now, what did you learn? This is what I'm especially curious about, because I think pull-ups for me, even when I wasn't great at them, it didn't take much to do more of them, because I'm just kind of, I've always been a smaller dude. So for you, what did you learn about succeeding at pull-ups from going through the challenge?
Being humble, maybe, uh, but you need to be patient. There's no shortcut. Um, you need a wide base. So by doing level 0, you widen the base, and then you can having a taller pyramid on top of this base by doing the very basic work. Um, I had a journey, and I am able to do handstand push-up. I do about 4 handstand push-up. So that may be the for 2022 to do more handstand push-up, or maybe try the one-arm push-up. But um, what I did in 2014 when I worked from 2012 to 2014 to be able to do handstand push-up. It was a very long time, but most people will try a shortcut and will never be able to do handstand push-up. And even though I was about 230 at the time, I was able to achieve handstand push-up because I take the time to widen the base as much as I could and being patient. So if I did work out for 22 years, what is 12 weeks of chin-up, pull-up practices? It's nothing. So you just got to invest this time, and you will have a much better result than trying to rely on this shortcut or this new method or this lose 30 pounds in 2 weeks. So
Yeah,
you need to stay away from that and just trust the process, because anyway, if you want to live a long life, a long and healthy life, you will be training your whole life anyway. So just take your time.
it's true. Yeah, it's one of those things. I think it's interesting too that you mentioned this, because I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, I always wonder what goes through people's heads when they go through like a crash diet, where it's like, over the next 12 weeks, I'm going to do this really strict diet. It's like, well, what are you going to do on week 13? Like, you've got a lot of years ahead of you. And I think a lot of people think about it only in terms of the short term. And I understand that from a certain standpoint, because it's like, you want to focus on what you can do within an amount of time that you can kind of envision. But if you don't have, like what you talked about, like the discipline to wake up at the same time every day, even if you don't want to, you go down to the basement and you do your workout. That is what's going to drive you forward. And especially if you've got, you're married, you have a couple of kids, you have a job that's very demanding. Like, these are the things that are going to help lead you to success. It's not this newfound cutting edge, like super scientific, whatever it may be. It's like the stuff that everyone kind of knows, but they don't want to admit to themselves. So that leads me to the next question here, is because you've already given some really good tips for people, and I think particularly those who are in a similar situation to yours. Do you have any message you might give to big guys like you who want to do more pull-ups but think they can't because they're too big?
Well, first of all, try to lose the flab. Okay, so stop eating crap. Eat like an adult. Somebody has told me that one day.
Yeah.
Stop eating like a kid and eat like an adult. But I'm still like about 20% body fat myself, so I'm not maybe the best person to tell you how to eat to be lean and everything. But you don't. If you have too much body fat, you can beat that on the bar. So, and then one thing I notice is you need to have a logbook. You need to write down every single workout. I can't remember what I had for lunch today. So how can I remember what I did in my training 2 days ago? Was it 15 second hold or 12 second hold? Should I do 20 today, or should I do 10? Is it a easy day, medium day, hard day? What did I did last week? The last time I did the exact same day, so a week from now, where was I? I don't feel good today. Do I feel better? Do I try to beat my record, or should I be taking it slow? So you need a logbook for that. You need. I love mathematics and statistics. I'm an engineer, so but everybody can benefit from data.
Yeah, I think one of the best things that I've heard about writing in general is that writing is like thinking slowed down, and made manifest. So I think it's the same thing. If you write down your workouts, you can look. I know of people who've talked about analyzing their own log books. They find, oh, you know what? I'm usually stronger, like, let's say the third week of the month. So if I want to try to lift something heavy, or I want to do like a really hard workout, I might want to plan that for, let's say, if let's say Wednesday is my heavy day for this, that, or the other thing, then I want it to be like Wednesday in the middle of the month that I'm going to maybe try for a new PR, as opposed to if you just know that, I tend to not be able to lift as heavy or work as hard, like toward the beginning of the month. You can get some really interesting insights that you can't get from, you're not going to read about it in a study. Nobody's going to tell you. It's stuff that goes on within your own body that you can start to notice these trends. So folks, when Francois recommends this, it's not just one of those things, like, oh, eat your veggies, drink your milk, whatever. This is something that is specifically going to help you with your training over the long term, because you will learn more about yourself from doing that than a trainer can tell you, because there are certain things that they will simply never, ever know. Now, one other thing that I want to mention, because you mentioned this earlier, you have talked about you were always kind of like the big dude. Everyone at work knows you as like this big, buff, muscular guy, but you had a very cool outcome from having done Power Up Your Pull Up. And as a guy who was already quite big, you said that people started saying something about that toward about the 11th or 12th week. So what was that all about?
Like the first time you meet somebody and say, whoa, you must train. But now as colleague and family, so people who see me about every day, and they say, what's happening? What's happening? You seem bigger, you seem wider, you seem, and I was at the same body weight. So it's just that the chest to back was thicker, and the wider stance from behind. So the power up, and the biceps seems to be more pumped, because shoulder, bicep, back, and I can't see my back, so I don't notice this, but people were noticing that there was something different, because if I started with just hanging on the bar for a couple of seconds every day, and then by week 11 or 12 I was doing 35, 40 pull-ups every 2 days. And right now I did get back on power up pull-ups like just before the summer vacation. I did another 8 weeks, and now I can hit easily over 50 pull-up in a 10-minute period. I love this program so much. I will do it again, because it's a muscle building program. It's easy, it's distracting. Like I say, it's just enough change from day to day so I don't get bored.
Yeah.
Because I usually get bored a lot with my workout. I need to change my workout a lot. That's also why I'm a big fan of Inner Circle.
I'm glad to hear that, because one of the things that I have to say, one of the reasons I love what you just said is because I didn't design Power Up Your Pull Up to be a muscle building program, but the way that it works really does put muscle on you, because it's designed to help you get in a fair amount of volume or total number of reps, but without exhausting you. And a lot of times what people find is that that just puts muscle on them, even if they're not, specifically working on trying to do that. And, for somebody who has been training for 22 years, in the course of a couple of weeks to get noticeably more muscular without putting on a lot of weight, just, really making your muscles bigger. And then of course, maybe shredding some fat along the way. It really is a testament to how the program works for people, because it's, you're not overeating, you're getting bigger anyway. It's like the best of both worlds.
It's a less stressful way to put on mass.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I got to say, I look forward to hearing all of your future successes in Power Up Your Pull Up, as well as Inner Circle workouts and other things like that. I know that your primary job is that of an engineer, but if people do want to catch up on your training periodically, maybe see what you're up to, is there any place that you can recommend that they go to find you, either online or in a particular Facebook group or anything like that?
Well, it's your Facebook group. I don't post often. I don't need to. I know people like the social interaction. Some people need that. I don't need that, but I'm still from time to time. Well, I go see every day what people post on the group, but I'm just behind the curtains,
Right,
like I say.
like Oz.
Yes, but like power up your pull-ups, it was so much of a. I don't know how to say it, but it works so well. So I needed to tell people about it. So
You know, we in America, what we say is if that it had a certain je ne sais quoi to it. Would you say that
mm,
that sounds about right?
yeah, yeah,
Excellent.
we
Well,
do see it too in French.
oh, good. Yes, of course. No, I felt like perhaps it had a French meaning to it.
Yeah.
No, well, I'm very happy to hear that you've had such great results. I learned a lot about even just the discussion we had slightly before the podcast, just how far it has taken you, and I'm glad to hear that it's going to get a lot of use and that you'll probably repeat it again in the future. And who knows? Next thing, maybe you're going to be doing pull-ups with your kids hanging off of you. We'll get a couple of videos like that.
Yeah, right now it's my daughter is training for her first pull-up, so
Oh,
she's hanging around. I push her up, and then she's at slowly negative reps down. So yeah, it's training at home. It's a powerful tool to show the kids a good example.
absolutely. I think that's probably the most important part, actually, is that you want to have a good impact on your kids. And it's not what you tell them, it's what they see you doing. And so if they
Yeah.
see you working out, that's something you can't miss. It's super easy for them to just pick that up into their own habits. It's like, well, this is just what my mom and dad do. So that's what I'm going to do.
And
And
the gym is available for us too.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Francois, thank you very much once again for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to have the same podcast as Fabio and people like legends of strong first and original strength people. So I'm a fan of the podcast, and it's an honor for me.
Well, you have more than earned your place in the
Thank you.
podcast. So thank you very much for being here. And folks, thank you for listening in. And as always, have fun and happy training.